Well, hello, everybody. It's Brenda Ringe with It Is What It Is with J. Parr, the Sears Group, and Powerhouse Property Group. So I just want to welcome some great ladies with the title company that we have to hear.
Can we all do that?
That's in honor of Gobble Day. It's coming up, Thanksgiving. Maybe we'll just keep all that right there.
I love it.
So that's what we're going to do. Don't take this out. This is what a podcast is about for me.
This is the personality for it.
This is exactly.
Yes.
And this is so I But here we are. So a couple of things. I just really want to thank these ladies. I met Cassie. Okay, well, let's back up. Title company.
Yes.
That's what we've got here. Today, our subject matter expert is Truly Title. So we got Bree and we got Cassie. And then, of course, we've got Chris Sears, my co-host. So the thing about it is today I really wanted somebody to come in and talk to us about taxes.
Ooh, fun.
So that's what we're going to.
Did everybody just get sweaty palms? 'Cause
Yeah,
I did.
Everybody just got sweaty palms and said, do I really want to listen to this?
Exactly, but it's such good information because, you know, as a realtor, we get phone calls from our clients or what is this and how does this work? And, when they're going to closing and what's this tax certificate? I mean, all these things, tax certificate, who's paying the taxes? Why are they making me pay this if this isn't going? But we're going to talk about all of it, right? Your biggest thing right now is what's happening with that.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I think that one of the things that sets Bree and I apart is communication is so great during your transaction, right? Mm-hmm. But education is such a second hand to that. So yes, we can communicate with you and we can tell you, hey, get your client to do this, they need to do this, but why? Mm-hmm. You know, going in and having that education behind it and allowing you to learn something and then be able to teach your client as well makes a huge difference than just having to go in and demand, hey, get this to title, they need it. Mm-hmm. Well, you're asking them to give some serious private information sometimes, right?
Yes.
So I don't know about you, but if someone says, hey, tell me about your grandma Sally and when she died and how many kids she had, I want to know why you're asking me those things. Mm-hmm. So if anything, during that communication, during your 30, 45 day, whatever that looks like in your transaction time, if we can educate you, so that the next transaction, you have that answer already and makes you look like you have known that for years, by all means, let us do that for you.
Exactly.
That's interesting. So let's provide the audience some of that education a little bit. What I'd like to ask you guys, each of you from your different perspectives, because we've got one person who's out talking with realtors and lenders and people in our business all day long, every day, bringing business into Truly Title, and that's you, Cassie, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
And then we have the escrow officer who's dealing with the consumer and dealing with all the questions like, what are all these numbers and why am I prorated and why is it based on this or that or the other? So I'm going to take some of those, just a couple of those questions that you hear over and over and over again, and let's just answer them right here for our audience so that next time they come to Truly Title, they know exactly what you're talking about when you're sitting at that table, right? So right now, it's my understanding, new tax bills are now being formulated and coming out, and that affects the prorated taxes on the settlement statement. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So can you walk us through kind of the debit and credit side of it as if I were a consumer sitting at the table, and let's say my tax bill at the end of the year is $12,000. It would normally be $12,000, and we're closing in November.
So come October 1st, those tax bills start coming out, and obviously if they're all out and assessed by all the different entities that you pay with your taxes, we'll collect them. Since you are the current owner and they're out as a seller, we would, collect them from you and then prorate to where you would get a credit for the remainder of the year from the buyer for those taxes. So we're collecting the full amount, and obviously that sucks. Nobody wants to do it, and property taxes just keep going up. But it's the matter of the transaction, and it's reversed. So, I mean, it's one of those situations. This is the one thing that I always tell people, no matter which way you look at it, nobody's going to be happy, because if it was before taxes are paid, the buyer doesn't want to give the seller, or, it's just
extra,
how,
right?
Yeah. Or the seller doesn't want to give, the buyer that big credit, especially if it's in the middle of the year. And so when, the seller's paying for it, the buyer's giving you a credit, and obviously that makes the seller happy. Doesn't make the buyer happy, but then the seller's still upset that they're having to pay for the full amount.
Right.
So, and a lot of the times that the best thing to tell sellers as well is if they do have that, they have a mortgage on their house, they have that escrow account, hey, you're going to get this back. Like, they're going to send you a check for that escrow account balance that you have. Just keep an eye out for it, call them and make sure that they have a good address. So you're paying for it, you're getting a credit, but if you have that escrow account, there's Christmas right there.
So if a seller is selling right now and they're getting that debit on the settlement statement out of their proceeds, right? So their net is a little lower. It's important that they know that in 3 weeks or a month, they're going to get that escrow liquidated that they currently have been paying into back.
Yes.
And so, is it important for them to call their bank and make sure they have an updated forwarding address?
I always recommend it because you
Yeah.
want to make sure that that check goes to the right place because, if they don't have an updated address, they're going to send it back to the property address.
Very important to note. Get your bank your proper updated information so they can mail you a check, right?
And I've heard Bree reiterate that so many times at the end of closing, throughout the year, not even this time of year, to make sure all those entities that have your mailing address, get those updated and fixed so that you're not missing out on a $12,000 check that may be coming your way. So
Yeah, so what happens if we're like I know you got all these entities that are taxing entities, right? You got county and you got
School,
and
MUD,
MUD.
everything.
So what happens in this weird precarious time right now where some of those things are updated for the current year and some of those things aren't? What do you do then?
So the way that, I've always done it, and I know that there are certain situations where, they'll allow you to pay some of the taxing entities and not all of them, but, it's a matter of looking at the whole transaction. If you have a buyer that's getting a loan and they're going to have an escrow account, 9 times out of 10, that lender is going to collect for the full, they're going to collect 13 months and put it in an escrow account to where they'll pay all of those taxes out of the buyer's escrow account. So then the proration goes back to where the seller is still giving the buyer a credit.
Okay.
And they'll receive that on the closing statement because the buyer is going to be responsible for paying for the full year. So then
Got it.
the seller gives the credit. So it depends on how it's all about communication because
Yeah.
I had one where it depends on what the lender wants, especially for their policy purposes and endorsements. That's another huge thing that comes into play to it because you have the not yet due and payable. So and that's a whole
why
nother
using
situation.
a great lender matters as well.
That's why we need a great lender and a great escrow officer.
Yes.
Yes, because
Thank you for explaining that.
Yeah.
That's good.
And,
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing too is understanding this, and you go through it every year. So every year it's the same thing. So if you go through it and you pay attention and you have that great relationship, like Cassie said, with your escrow officers and your lenders, and they inform you and give you all of the information that you need, it's going to be the same every year. So then that makes you even better for the next year when you're going through all of it.
You're already anticipating it. You know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And you can ask those questions throughout your listing presentation, throughout your whole transaction of, hey, let's go ahead and get these things together. Get that, who you need to reach out to change that mailing address, that kind of stuff. So
Man, it all comes back to that communication and setting the right expectation up front.
It does.
absolutely.
So that you don't have the fires on the back end that everybody's freaking out about.
You tell those things up front, and it
Mm-hmm.
really, like you said, the fires are just not there at the end, and it's always great to be able to reiterate, say, hey, I did let you know. Let's
Mm-hmm.
talk about that email that I sent. Here you go again.
yeah.
But this is what we're going to do to overcome it.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that really because I think that is definitely some great information, especially for all these new agents that come in, and so that me as being a mentor and trying to help new agents and educate them and going through things like I was just saying earlier, I really do tell them your best friend becomes your title company through a transaction.
It's true.
And
Yeah.
you
It is so
have to
true.
build that relationship. And I've always picked up the phone when I don't know, and that's what I'm teaching them to do. But at the same time, I need to teach them to say, hey, we need to come to classes that you guys have about these things so that we
Right.
can educate. And like you said, at the front end, make sure they understand and explain to these people. Because like you said, when the sellers say, like, why am I giving all this money? But at the end of the day, you're really going to be getting this back. But that's what us as realtors have to understand. And I know that there's probably plenty of us that don't, but I know that there's plenty of us do. And I just want to be a better realtor, a better mentor to these new agents and educating them in that.
I just got goosebumps. Thank you for doing that. That's whenever I meet mentors who are, they're taking these agents that are brand new that, went through Champions and learned just this much of everything, right? Not understanding that there's so much more behind, it's the tip of the iceberg and you don't see the huge iceberg underneath of everything else you need to know. So I encourage the agents, have that relationship with your escrow officer. Yes. I have a great relationship with my escrow officer. Because if I don't know the answer, guess who's getting a phone call? It's her. So.
Oh yeah, and that's exactly it. It's knowing that you can pick up the phone. But that is definitely one thing that I tell them: build that relationship, pick up a phone, whoever and go from there.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to see that they're doing it. I mean, we do have some. So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
I know it's still tax stuff that we're talking about, but this is a little off. So when a deal goes south and we're doing a release of earnest money.
Ooh, yeah.
Okay, and the seller it's during option period. Mm-hmm. So everything was done. They send it, all the paperwork, but the seller still hasn't signed the release of earnest money, and it's still during option period. I mean, it was all sent beforehand. Y'all will step in and try to reach out to that individual too, correct? Mm-hmm. To help get it signed.
So we'll send it to the agent and just say, hey, just want to make sure that you saw this, checking in to see if you have, the executed copy, because we need to get this released from our system and, canceled out and we just use the accounting purposes and
exactly
the commitment examination side of it. So that way it's not showing on their to-do list for certain things. So.
Right. So
go in with that friendly hand. And,
well,
yeah.
You don't want them to
Did you see that this hadn't been signed yet?
But
you want to give them this.
Well, what if they still haven't done it and it was all done the right way? I mean, and now a buyer's getting really upset. Why is it not released yet? We go to the agent. They're still not responding. And yet, they can't really come back and say, well, we're keeping the money. Well, why? It's done during option. It's in the contract. You cannot keep the money. It's you're supposed to release it. Yeah. That is part of that, the option fee. So I'm just was wondering, does it ever happen to where somebody doesn't ever sign it, and then I know it sits in limbo?
Yeah.
Because nothing can happen to it.
Yeah.
But that's not.
So I've never.
How do you overcome that?
Had anything that hasn't been signed, but if the buyer signed it, well, they have agents. We'll tell them, hey, see if you can reach out to the seller's agent. If you can't get a hold of them, and I hate to do this, see if you can reach out to their broker, because in the back of their mind, that's where they're going to go, because they're like, if I can't get a hold of him, let me get a hold of somebody who's above this person to see if they can nudge them a little bit. And then also there's that portion on the contract that talks about communication, and if there's, all the time we get nothing in there, so obviously we have to mail it or do something, but it has to be certified mail, and of course that takes a lot of time.
The
demand letter.
Yeah, so we can do all of that, but I haven't had anything come to that, knock on wood.
So I have seen situations and heard of them, and because inevitably it's going to happen.
Are you sliding down?
I am. It's fine. I feel like a kid at the adult table here. It's fine. I'm just gonna. Everything's great today, y'all.
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
I love it. It makes it a lot more fun. We have an attorney on staff as well, so if these things do come up, we do have him that can step in and help us kind of guide where that needs to go. We're a mess today.
It's the day after Halloween.
This is all good. This is all good.
She's drunk on candy. It's fine.
I do want to touch on this though, because most people don't understand that if there's an earnest money dispute, that either party can present a demand letter. Mm-hmm. And once they present a demand letter, there's a by the way, disclaimer, I'm not an attorney, so don't take this as legal advice.
Please, none of us in this
But that being said, been doing this a little while, and you'll just take my opinion, not legal opinion, just opinion. So basically, there's a 15-day then window that begins once that demand letter has been delivered for the other party to respond with their own response. It could be, well, no, we're demanding it, right? It could be whatever response they want, but they've got 15 days to respond.
From when it was initially...
From the initial demand letter.
Oh, from the demand. But how long after is the demand letter presented from the time that you...
It can go back and forth. The trigger is when somebody produces a demand letter, right? If there's a dispute, nobody's demanded the money, then it's just sitting there in limbo.
Well, what if there's
Once
no
a demand
dispute yet? Nobody's said anything. We just haven't had them sign it yet. We
It's
can do the
the-
demand letter right then and there. I
You
mean,
can do the demand letter anytime
Okay.
after
Perfect.
there's somebody not signing, right?
Perfect, okay.
So the demand letter produces a 15-day window for the other party to respond. If that party responds within the 15 days, there's another 7-day window that the original party that produced the demand
Right.
letter has to respond to the response, right?
Mm-hmm.
So 15-7. Right?
Yes.
So if that initial party then responds within that 7 days, now you have an official dispute that has been responded to on both sides. Both parties are engaged, and now it may go to what I would prefer and what I see most of the time, some type of mediation or settlement, all the way through possible arbitration. But it doesn't. Getting there is really difficult to get to that point.
Okay.
If they go for 2 years and can't resolve it, the money goes to the state.
It's
So
really-
that I knew about. I was just curious how long. I mean, with that.
We would like to encourage the agents and brokers, like, hey, come to a resolution. Like you said, that mediation, whether it be splitting it, whether it be whatever that looks like, right? But what people need to understand is when it comes to this, title has to stay that third party that
Yeah,
is
you can't- yeah.
that's right.
disinterested.
You're not the mediator.
No,
you're just
gosh,
simply
no.
there to
I was in high school.
execute what was
A mediator.
told of you.
You're a mediator. But yeah, we have to go and there's so many times that I have to tell my agents if they call me and ask questions that I need to, like, hey, go ask your broker, ask your mentor, because there's just things we cannot talk about. I'm sick of y'all. This is
Hello, anybody there?
Bree's for the first time. Bree's taller than anyone in the room.
It's the best day of my life.
I love it.
Yeah, we're just all kind of following your lead.
But
Go
no, I
ahead.
don't want to hurt people's feelings when I tell them go talk to your broker. I can't answer that.
No, and you
Because
don't
once
hurt
again,
our
I'm not
feelings.
an attorney. I'm not a licensed agent. I'm not a licensed broker. Go.
Yeah, that's right.
Please.
Absolutely. And I really appreciate you guys explaining that because, I, as somebody who is trying to be able to advise agents on inside our brokerage on, like, okay, which way should I handle this, et cetera. It's important that they understand those timelines and that they understand that the title company is not the one that makes the decision.
No.
The title company is simply a facilitator of what the parties, the principals to the transaction, have demanded or told, or then come to an agreement on.
Which
That's
is a
it.
beautiful place to be. I'm going to be honest. Look, being able to
neutral.
Yes.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Makes our job a little
But
bit easier.
you know how many times I've had agents reach out to me and say, "Oh, well, my broker, I can't get in touch with my broker, or my broker is not going to be able to answer," and I'm like, then you may need to talk to Chris Sears at JPAR. No,
Oh, yeah, because
I'll pay you later.
it's so important.
we have
to
a broker
good
support line, and it's always getting answered by people, not
Right.
people,
It's
but
important
yeah.
to
7
have
days a
that
week.
support staff on, even on y'all's side. We have it on ours. Between our attorney, between our leadership, our examiners, we have that education for us and those people to go to. Agents have to have that as well.
Oh yeah, we have
That's
a
right.
plethora of that good stuff that we get, and that's why we really appreciate, partners like you guys, title companies just that work with us and help educate people, So yeah, I'll be doing like a little class or getting together with something of that
Let's do it.
for my for the mentees that I have, because I think that really they need more stuff.
You could talk title for days,
I know,
I
so many
always do,
different
like,
subjects with it.
the title one-on-one class, and I try to keep it an hour. It never is an hour. But, I mean, you could talk about it for 3 or 4 hours and
You're like-
still have...
Yeah. There's so many different things that could go right, could go wrong, questions. I mean, every transaction is different on a day-to-day basis, and
true.
you get different personalities as well, so that sometimes doesn't help. And
I will definitely agree with that. So since I have been mentoring, and more so in the last probably 6 months, I have helped agents that have had situations that I have never experienced in my own transactions.
Yeah.
The joy of my stuff, I feel like it's like, whoa, it's just been really smooth,
You
And
better
so,
knock on wood.
I know. Well,
pray.
it's coming back to me by helping these folks.
Right.
Because that's where, like, some of these questions, why I'm asking certain things, that they're coming, it's like, okay, well, I've said this and I'm thinking this and now this is happening. And it's just, it's just a lot. Just a lot that I'm coming across right now that I had not ever. It's like, I don't know that. Let me call Chris.
Well, there's one, I mean, just talking about topics that come up all the time is one of the ones is surveys, like say we've gotten through that option period, we've ordered the survey because the survey was needed, and for some reason the transaction falls out, whether it be financing, well, whatever. Well, now we have an invoice for a survey that has to be paid,
Yeah.
right? So once again, those are one of those things that we go by the contract. And until we get an agreement as to who's going to pay it, we can't release the earnest money. Like, we've got to have an agreement on who's going to cover this because
Yes.
we've got to make sure.
funds delivered too.
Yeah.
Because you release that earnest money, they come to an agreement and they release that earnest money, and then nobody drops off a check.
We're sitting here with a $560 survey.
Yeah.
yeah.
So
It's very, that's one of those things that's very rarely talked about in the open about who covers the survey on the back end and the protocol for that, at least at the agent level.
Yeah.
And so agents setting the expectation properly with your client about what's in the contract, who's going to pay for the survey, and helping them understand that whether or not the contract closes, once the survey is ordered and done, there is payment is due.
Regardless.
That's so important to explain to the client. So make sure that if you haven't been explaining that to your clients, that you take the time to sit down and explain who's paying for the survey and when it comes due.
why it's so important, I think, during that listing presentation to ask about that survey.
Yeah, of course.
Do you have an existing one? Has anything changed? I mean, you're just setting yourself up for success by asking those right questions in that listing presentation.
The easiest way is to provide an existing survey with an affidavit
Yeah,
247 done.
Done.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So then people are, I don't know where it's at. It's up in the attic somewhere. What you doing putting paper up in the attic?
Well,
Truly
you can
Title
go, tell you
has-
what, go climb up in the attic and save yourself $500.
Well, I was going to say, and Truly Title has a software that can help you find the existing
Same
title
title
company that
company.
may have that. So that's another, I mean, this is a secret maybe, but something that you could tell your agents as well. Say they don't have that survey. It's in the attic with all the Christmas stuff, shoved under grandma's old wedding gown, whatever. If they can remember what title company that they closed at when they purchased the
You
home,
can get from there, probably
that
research it
title
and get
company,
it.
get them to call and request a copy of it.
Yep.
Exactly.
Even if they have a picture of it, generally the surveying company is on the bottom corner somewhere with contact information.
And that survey company will provide another copy of it.
That's
Maybe
right.
not the laminated, beautiful
The
one,
one.
but
They don't need it.
one that an examiner is going to approve.
Right.
And that's really what you want.
Depending on how long it's been.
Yeah.
We've had a couple of those. So some survey companies, it's 10 years. Some of them it's 5. Some of it's 7. But it's worth a shot.
And don't forget
Absolutely.
to ask the follow-up question, have you done anything to the home since the survey
survey.
was completed? Because if they've put in a patio,
Yes.
if they've put in a pool,
Yes.
if they've changed the fence.
If they put in a basketball court,
A
Yeah.
pool
Oh, wow.
and a basketball.
yeah,
Both.
that counts. That counts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
So they
counts.
needed to get a new
Oh, well,
survey.
right. So, I mean, you've got some examiners that will, if it's like a concrete slab for a shed kind of thing, some will allow some wiggle room in getting that taken care of. But if you've put in an entire pool or an entire basketball court, you're going to have to go ahead and get a new survey.
Right, exactly. Well, I think you've really given us a lot of good information today, ladies. I'm sure at some point in time again I will have you back because I really love all that you provide. And maybe next time we'll find you a chair that doesn't make you fall down
but it's
slowly.
just really added a lot of excitement. So I'm actually, if I
does.
come back and have a good chair, I'm going to be heartbroken, actually.
I'll figure
So-
something else out though to get you.
Let's save that chair.
Yeah, we'll
You put
figure
the
it out.
whoopee cushion underneath it or something.
Oh yeah, you can do that, and then every time we'd be like, "Woo, Chris!" No,
At a whole other level of excitement here.
he's so crazy. I love it. Well, once again, like I said, folks, thank you so much for tuning in. We always have fun. You never know what you're going to get here with It Is What It Is with Brenda Renge, Powerhouse Property Group, along with Jay Parr, the Sears Group, my co-hosts today, Chris Sears, and our lovely Bree and Cassie with Truly Title. Thanks so much. Be blessed.
Deuces.
Bye.